This is SG2 Perspectives, a conversation with SG2 experts and industry thought leaders about the biggest trends in healthcare and what we all expect that's going to mean for the future of healthcare delivery.
I sit down with CFOs all the time and I say, are you in the real estate business? Hospital CFOs. No, I'm not in the real estate business, but show me your balance sheet. You're in the real estate business.
Welcome to SG2 Perspectives. I'm your host, Trevor Durand. On this episode, I get to interview two leaders from Ventas, an S&P 500 company, and a leading real estate investment trust. Their diverse portfolio of approximately 1,200 assets across the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. consists of senior housing, medical office buildings, university-based research and innovation centers, inpatient rehab, and long-term acute care facilities, and of course, health systems. Through its Lillibridge subsidiary, Ventas provides management, leasing, marketing, facility development, and advisory services to highly rated hospitals and health systems throughout the U.S. So today, I'm going to ask them to think about how hospitals and health systems are rethinking the huge fixed assets and real estate that they have. I have Margie McHugh, Senior Vice President of Advisory Services, and Shane Seitz, Senior Investment Officer of Acquisitions. They're going to give us a glimpse into how big trends impacting the broader healthcare industry are playing out in real estate. You guys think you can do that? I think we can. So first, for Margie, thanks for getting us started. How and why is the focus shifting across outpatient sites, and where are health systems growing within outpatient?
Well, thank you, Trevor. It's great to be talking to you and your group here, and Shane and I hopefully can impart some wisdom of all of our experience, right? But I think we all know that healthcare has been shifting from inpatient to outpatient over the last decade. I think Moody's most recent medians were outpatient revenue as a percentage of NPR, net patient revenue, was about 52%. So actually in 2016, it jumped over the 50% mark, which was significant in that now we really are looking at more of the footprint and services moving out. And I think we all kind of know that, those of us in the healthcare industry. The drivers are also well documented. We know that it's the advances in technology and pharma, the drive to reduce cost, which of course is huge in our business. And then this whole shift to consumer preference, the patient experience being important, all of those things are pushing care to the outpatient settings. I think in our portfolio, we have over 200 hospitals and health systems that are affiliated with our medical office portfolio. So we have definitely seen these shifts occurring, and they, of course, impact us as owners of real estate. I think health systems we kind of look at it in three groups. Maybe the first one is the ambulatory network, which is primarily about primary care. So the ambulatory footprint that I know we talk a lot about with SG2 is all about getting the primary care practices, services out into the market as close to the consumer as possible. We've got clients who are having goals of, we want a primary care service within 5 minutes of every person in our market. Most of them are around 10 or 15, but there are people that are actually saying within 5 minutes. So it's very important. And these are particularly the systems that are focusing on population health. So they want to have a service easily accessible for the population. So that's kind of the first bucket of, I think, when we look at the footprint and outpatient services. But this is also the one that's being disrupted the most. And this is that's the part of healthcare that's the most like retail. And this is where we're seeing the One Medicals, the CVS's, health hubs, Walmart's clinics that they're putting out. They're competing with the hospital's ambulatory footprint at the primary care level. And we definitely see that with our clients. The second one that we tend to think about, and this has been around for quite a while, are the hub and spoke model. So you've got the ambulatory footprint out in the market close to the population, but then there are these hubs where people come for a broader set of ambulatory services, specialist imaging, sometimes ambulatory surgery centers. We see all of those in the portfolio as well. These hub and spoke things have been around quite a while and probably morphing more so on the primary care level site. And then finally, we kind of get to our hospital campuses. And again, as an owner of real estate, we own a lot of on-campus medical office buildings. So we definitely know what's going on there. And what we're seeing there is primarily that the hospitals are creating centers of excellence, or calling them centers of excellence, calling them institutes, usually things like neurosciences, oncology, orthopedics, cardiology, or higher end, higher acuity service lines, although a number of these are becoming heavily outpatient as well. But the medical office buildings, from a real estate perspective, are the outpatient component of the campus. So when we're seeing the campus become kind of the ultimate acute care setting with kind of a downward, non-acute, less acute component in the campus, that's where we're seeing the medical office buildings. So to us, we think of it as the primary care piece, the hubs, and then the campuses. We've got clients playing in all those arenas.
Yeah, and it's funny, you've been around for just a couple of years in healthcare real estate. So I hate to admit it, but it's almost 20 years for me as well, being in healthcare real estate and watching the evolution from inpatient to outpatient, and just the cost of capital changing significantly. From when I came in almost 20 years ago, you would buy a building, it would be a 10 cap, which now is like a 5.5 cap or a 6 cap, which is crazy to see the compression of the cost of capital and the desire to be in this space. And it's funny, you talk about the hub and spoke. That's all it was when we started. There was no retailization, which is the new term now, right? Retailization of healthcare. Yeah. So it's interesting to see that change. But that also impacts us as owners and buyers of real estate. When I started buying real estate, it was all about being on campus. You wanted to have a medical office building on campus. You wanted to have specialists that were on campus so that when they did their rounds, they could walk from their office building over to their hospital, do their rounds, come back, see more patients, and get the volume and the turnover of those patients.
Keep them there.
Yeah, keep them there. And then we started to move into the hub and spoke model, which was kind of coming up when I started. And it was about having specialists, mainly primary care doctors in medical office buildings, maybe 30 to 40,000 square foot facilities off campus in markets where they thought they wanted to be located, and they had some demographic information. You'd look at utilization rates, and you did all those analysis just like I did back.
And the competition.
And the competition and the market share and how do we capture this, that component of it. It's interesting to see that move. And now we've jumped all the way to consumerization of healthcare. And so I always say this, we've all been trained as users of healthcare, and we're now trying to be trained to be consumers of healthcare. What system do I want to go to? Why do I want to go to that location? What's closest to my house? When is it open? And so that causes different challenges for owners of the real estate as well. And so that's now being driven by the insurance companies, which is also morphing the use of the healthcare a little bit. And we're seeing health systems get in the insurance plan business. So as an owner of real estate, we used to buy 30,000, 40,000 square foot medical office buildings. And then as these morphed into larger outpatient specialty centers that you talk about, centers of excellence are on campus, but they're also off campus.
Right.
But we have these mini hospitals that are now the off-campus size is 100 to 150, and we may see as large as 200,000 square feet in some instances. Wow. So it's basically a miniature hospital without any beds. Right. You can go there and get all of your services for a lot less money and a lot less land. I, as a hospital, can go do that. And so hospitals will look to use somebody's third-party capital like Ventas to own that facility and build that facility for them through one of our partners. So it's interesting to see that move. And then the smaller facilities, these 10,000 square foot clinics, are feeders, right?
Yes.
That's where you're capturing that patient to the hub, to the hospital, or to these off-campus micro hospitals. So it's completely different than what it was, and it's completely different the way you have to think about how you're going to own that real estate and what real estate you want to own and what's the long-term use of that real estate. So the nuance, and you understand this more than anyone else, Margie, is you have to understand the healthcare first. Once you understand the healthcare, then it's just owning real estate. Before we started this, you were joking that you don't have anything insightful to say. You have the most insight about this topic. I'm just a real estate guy. So
you're right. Healthcare real estate guy. Very different.
With that in mind, are hospitals and health systems ready to admit that they're really in the real estate business, given how much they own?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I sit down with CFOs all the time and I say, are you in the real estate business? Hospital CFOs. No, I'm not in the real estate business, but show me your balance sheet. You're in the real estate business. That's the bulk of what's on your balance sheet. That's your asset base is real estate. So there's a lot of other industries and a lot of other companies that have gotten out of the real estate business. Hotels don't actually own the hotels. They don't own the real estate. They have the operating company. So if I'm a health system CFO and I want to think about what I'm really doing and what I'm really providing for my scope and my care, my mission-driven organization, it's providing that healthcare. It's providing access to healthcare. It's providing the ability to have their patient base live a better life, a healthier life. And by doing that, they don't need to hold and own their real estate. That allows them a little more flexibility. I think that some systems have been more progressive in that. Some systems haven't been as progressive. So it really depends on the system, How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think we're getting to them talking about monetization and how they use their capital. And one of the things we see that's a step prior to that is that a lot of the systems have been in growth mode. So when you're talking about creating this ambulatory footprint, what does that mean? It means taking out leases, building buildings, buying older buildings and fixing them up, buying someone else's building. The ambulatory network, by virtue of what it is, entails bricks and mortar. So that's been growing. And then the other thing that's not as proactive, that maybe is reactive, is all the real estate that you acquire because you're buying physician practices. So you're taking on their leases, you're taking on their old buildings in some cases. And then just the sheer M&A of hospitals acquiring other hospitals. It's not just a hospital they acquire, but every physical therapy site, every sleep lab, every physician office they own. So there's a lot of accumulation, and I think has been going on. And I think what we're seeing is the phase that's really part of capital planning is really just looking at the portfolio. And now they're probably focusing inward and look at everything I have. What do I need? It's all about right sizing. We're hearing terms like rationalizing. So when SG2 talks about rationalizing service lines or sites of service, why do I need 5 cardiac programs? Where do I want to deliver babies? What's my neuro hospital?
Is it a retailization component? Is it a clinic where I'm driving?
Yeah.
Is it a larger facility that's not on the hospital campus? Is it a center of excellence on that hospital campus?
Yeah.
Where should I consolidate all these physicians that I now employ? Where should I deliver these services? So it's really, they're in the real estate business and they probably don't need to be in the real estate
And they
business.
don't want to be.
They don't want to be.
Yeah.
And they don't need to own that real estate. They can partner with someone and they can focus on the strategy and the delivery of that care, which is what they do well. I don't want to be in the hospital operation business. I've watched that for so many years. I know that I would not be able to handle that.
Yeah. I think we understand what they're trying to do, and we understand that every asset isn't the same. And you need to evaluate each of them based on what the services are, the location, the market.
What are other new things you're seeing from the real estate side in terms of the type of investment or the profile of investors? Is that changing too?
Yeah, I think we've covered the evolution of the use of real estate, of healthcare real estate, and how that's evolved and where it is today and where we think it's probably going to remain is kind of more of an off-campus location. Margie made the biggest point, which is, why can things be done in an outpatient setting? 20 years ago when you got an ACL done, you were in the hospital for 3 days. It was probably more than anything else, the anesthesia that you had that caused you to be there, because it just took a while to kind of get back to normal.
Yeah.
You don't need that anymore. I just recently looked at a surgery center where they're considering in the future actually doing cardiac cases in a same-day location setting.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You never think that would happen. I mean, you're now doing spinal cases that were a week stay in the hospital, have been moved down to 72 hours, and now you're doing those same day. So it's incredible to see the advancement of the delivery of care. But the biggest thing for me, beyond just the different real estate asset types, is the influx of capital, or the capital that wants to come into this space. Everybody that's been in this space doing healthcare real estate or understanding the investment of healthcare real estate has been around for probably the last 15 to 20 years. When I started, it was mainly mom and pop investors, local people that happened to build an MOB.
Developers, right?
Yeah,
Local developers.
And then in the mid-2000s, public REITs started to get into the space. Ventas made our first acquisition in the mid-2000s. Then we started to grow that business line. 2008 came. Everybody knows 2008 was an interesting time, right? 2009 came and went, and not much happened.
Great time to graduate from college.
Yeah, good for you. Fortunately, I was already out and well into my career. But 2008 really showed all the other investors that, hey, healthcare is good. All of our stock prices went down. I was at another REIT that Ventas actually acquired a few years later. And the thing that I remember is we just kept paying our dividend every month, every quarter. We kept paying our dividend. We didn't have any loss of tenancy. We didn't really have any downturn. Retail was down. People weren't buying things. Industrial was down. Multifamily was down. And offices were down. The economy was not expanding. It was retracting significantly. Yeah. Those are the big 4 buckets. When you think about real estate investors, it's kind of office buildings, retail, industrial, and multifamily. Those are kind of the big 4. Most real estate investors will be invested in those 4. And now they're starting to look at other asset types like healthcare, like self-storage, some of the other things. Healthcare has become a much more common investment. When they talk to their investors, everybody wants to have some exposure to healthcare. Healthcare is a big spender here in our economy, right? More and more baby
almost
boomers.
20%, right?
Yeah, almost 20%. Yeah. And that's going to continue to rise. So the big thing that I've noticed is more capital looking to come in, not just foreign capital that gets talked about, but also U.S. capital. More and more U.S. capital is trying to get into this space. And it really takes understanding the healthcare before you can understand the real estate. If you don't understand the healthcare, it's hard for you to be successful in the real estate. I think it's interesting to watch that new capital come in and be on the sidelines and look for ways to come in. I know there's billions of dollars that are set on the side that want to get in, and it'll be interesting to watch how that happens, which makes it a great time. You would think it would be a bad time to be a REIT, but it's actually a great time. It makes our investments that much more valuable and our shareholders that much better off that we've been in the space for as long as we have.
What do you think might happen next? I didn't appreciate how much the profile of investors had changed from just 10 or 15 years ago. How's the big demographic trend, the silver tsunami that all healthcare is seeing as the big wave that's changing now and going to continue changing over the next 10 years, their payer mix, how's that going to impact the real estate side?
Yeah, there's absolutely more demand. Yeah, as real estate owners, we're excited. Sure. There's a lot more demand, but it goes back to how do we want to consume that healthcare? Where do we want to consume that healthcare? So as an owner of real estate, we have to understand where the direction of the delivery of care is going. It's not just about having the prettiest building or the best location, which you view from a traditional real estate standpoint as the best location, right? McDonald's has the best real estate. That's what they are. They're a real estate company.
Yeah.
They make burgers.
It picks the right corners.
Yeah, they pick the right corners.
Yeah.
And Burger King picks the corner on the other side, which is less desirable, but that's their strategy. Walgreens, another great example, picks the right real estate locations. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the way that we want to be delivering healthcare to our patients. If you've got a sick child, you don't want to have to drive somewhere necessarily. You want to be in your community. You want it to be convenient. You want it to be accessible. And that great corner for a Starbucks or a Walgreens or McDonald's might not be the right corner for the healthcare delivery. It might be too expensive of a location, but it's understanding how we're going to deliver that healthcare. Going forward, that's what's important about owning the real estate. And I think that's what's going to really drive our real estate decisions. And I think more and more of this consumerization of healthcare is just going to dictate what real estate is used and how it's used and what we at Ventas will invest in. Do you feel differently?
Yeah, no, that's a great way to wrap up what we've been talking about. It's really about the services to the consumer and what, wrapping around the real estate. I think the only other angle I would say is that we just know that there's this increased pressure on cost because the silver tsunami is also dumping everyone into Medicare. And so the payer pressures are going to continue. I think that your question is, what are we seeing? Is I'd much rather have SG2 tell us what you're seeing than on our end, everything that Shane said, but with the quotation marks of the cost pressure. In our world, there's always focus on bricks and mortar and the cost. So we need to be very judicious in understanding our clients' needs, our tenants' needs, trying to be a good partner for them and helping make sure that that location is the best it can be for them. Because it's all about their service. And when they're focused on their patients, we are a representative. The patient views us as our client services. So we're part of that patient experience. That's very important to us to keep an eye on that.
I always say we're part of a three-legged stool.
Yes.
We're the real estate.
Yeah.
The hospital provides the services and the physicians are the ones actually doing that. So we all have to be aligned in that. If we're not providing quality real estate, quality locations, keeping the buildings looking great, keeping them branded the way that the health system wants them, providing the right layout, in the space for the physicians, the amenities to make patients, all of that, we're failing as a partner. And I think that's one of the things that we're really focused on currently is providing good redevelopment solutions for our hospital partners, looking for creative ways for our hospital partners to monetize their real estate through various structures that will benefit them for the long term, that will benefit us for the long term, and will allow their physicians to see more patients and be more efficient in the care of those patients. You know, the reimbursements are a big deal, right? You've got this population going from commercial payer mix to a Medicare payer mix. Yeah. Medicare pays the same, right, Margie? You get just as much. Medicaid pays just as much. So you're right. There are these cost pressures. And let's be honest, too. Today's economy is booming. Things are expensive. It's hard to build today. It's expensive to build. You're competing with multifamily that seems to be going up everywhere, and that market just keeps going. Industrial, same thing. Retail bricks and sticks are kind of going, they're not as in favor because consumers don't want to go to the location to buy everything. Yeah, it's all online. That's why industrial facilities are now 1 million plus square feet. Whoever thought you would have 1 million
So retail going down is benefiting industrial.
It's benefiting industrial tremendously, right? Multifamily, people don't want to buy houses. They hear the stories about 2008. Office space is still doing well, but that's really some nuances in the way that we're using office, more telecommuting, but still more small offices. The timeshare office component is really keeping that alive. Yeah. We'll see if that's around. But I think that's...
Today it is.
Today it is. But I think that's the interesting part about our space. So I'm excited to see where the future takes. 20 years ago, I wouldn't have known that we'd be here today. I wouldn't have thought that the delivery of healthcare would have changed as much as it is. People that are in the space or that are looking in peripherally probably don't think it's changed that much, but it really has changed a lot.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And I think it's a great place to be.
Great points. Thanks so much for your insights and providing Ventas perspective on the questions you're hearing from health system executives. So Shane and Margie, thanks so much for joining me and for sharing your wisdom.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this episode of SG2 Perspectives, where SG2 experts and industry thought leaders explore the drivers of tomorrow's healthcare strategies to inform today's decision makers. I've been your host, Trevor Durin. Contact us anytime by sending an email to sg2perspectives@sg2.com. SG2 revolutionized demand forecasting with the Impact of Change forecast in 2001, and today we're the healthcare industry's premier strategy advisory firm. To learn more, visit sg2.com. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you again soon.